Manchester's hopes. Harvey takes a temple pass and shoots confidently past Harry Gray.
Harvey, it's a goal!
He didn't raise fists, he didn't chase headlines, he didn't pose for flashbulbs or beg for the mic. But when Everton moved like a symphony, Colin Harvey was the rhythm beneath the sound. While Kendall led, while Ball lit the fire, while trophies passed from hand to hand, Harvey stayed behind the noise, watching everything, balancing everything. He wasn't the face of the club, but he was the reason it stood tall, won a league title, lifted the FA Cup, and never once asked to be noticed. He passed through the game like wind through grass, seen by those who truly watched, felt by those who understood what held a team together. He didn't demand legacy, he became it. Subscribe. Not for the men who pointed at their backs, but for the ones who carried the crest quietly. Before the passes, before the trophies, before they ever called him the White Pele, he was just a boy in the Gladys Street end, watching the game he would one day change. Colin Harvey was born on 16th of November 1944, raised in Liverpool, just streets away from the sound of Goodison Park. He wasn't born into football. He walked toward it, step by step, quietly. As a kid, he stood behind the railings of the boys' pen, wrapped in cold wind and blue dreams, studying the rhythm of the players like a boy learning a language he already knew. In 1960, Everton gave him a job, not as a player, but as an apprentice. He swept the changing rooms, carried kit bags, cleaned boots for the men he one day wanted to stand beside. And by 1963, he did. Aged 18, Harvey made his debut for Everton, not in a preseason friendly or some quiet reserve match. He stepped into the San Siro under European floodlights against Inter Milan. Where most teenagers would have crumbled, Harvey just moved. Simple, smart, silent. Like he'd already played the game in his mind 1,000 times. He made 320 league appearances for Everton, 1963-1974, and 365 career club appearances in total. By the mid-60s, he wasn't just part of the squad. He was becoming the spine of it. No headlines, no interviews, just passes threaded like whispers, control and chaos, and a young man who didn't speak much, but understood everything, from the stands to the stage, from apprentice to architect. He didn't just dream of playing for Everton, he stepped into the dream and made it work. By the time the 1964-65 season arrived, Colin Harvey was no longer the quiet apprentice. He was in the team, earning his place, not with power, but with poise. He didn't scream for the ball, he didn't tear through defenders, he just kept it moving, clean, crisp, exact. It didn't take long for fans to see it. Harvey wasn't like most midfielders, he wasn't chasing headlines, he was chasing perfection. And around him, something was forming. Everton's midfield began to take shape. Howard Kendall with his bite, Alan Ball with his fire, and Harvey with his control. 3 men, 3 minds, 1 unit. They called it the Holy Trinity. And in the middle of it, Colin Harvey became the balance, the rhythm that let the other 2 shine. Commentators noticed. Kenneth Wolstenholme said, "A beautiful footballer, this boy." But Harvey didn't need words. He had his own language. Short passes, clever angles, and a calm that made teammates trust him in any storm. By 1966, he was no longer emerging. He was established. Everton's heartbeat in midfield. Not loud, not large, but always there. But in 1966, Colin Harvey wrote himself into Everton history. The semi-final against Manchester United, tight, tense, tied, until Harvey arrived at the edge of the box, 1 strike, 1 goal, Everton to Wembley. And at Wembley, in the FA Cup final, Everton came from 2-2 down to beat Sheffield Wednesday 3-2. A comeback for the ages. Harvey lifted the cup with the same calm he played with. No roar, just rhythm. But his finest season came 4 years later, 1969-70. Everton didn't just compete, they conquered. He earned 1 England cap, 3rd in February 1971 versus Malta. Harvey played 40 league games that season. Consistent, composed, never booked, never shaken, and when the title drew near, he stepped forward again. A solo goal against West Brom at Goodison. the moment that clinched the league. He didn't tear off his shirt, he didn't jump into the crowd, he just raised his hand, nodded once, and walked back to the halfway line. That season brought the First Division title and the Charity Shield that followed. 3 major trophies in 4 years, and Harvey had been there for all of it, never missing a step, never chasing the light, just giving others the stage and holding everything behind it in place. He gave everything, every run, every tackle, every measured pass. But the one thing Colin Harvey couldn't control was time. By the early 1970s, his body began to whisper back. Injuries. Not dramatic, not headline-grabbing, just quiet pains that never quite left. He kept playing. He kept showing up. But the sharpness that once defined him started to dull under pressure and treatment tables. In 1974, after more than a decade in Royal Blue, Harvey left Everton. There were no speeches, no banners, just a handshake and a quiet transfer to Sheffield Wednesday. It wasn't a fall from grace, it was a slow, respectful exit. He gave the Owls 2 years, playing 45 league games between 1974 and 1976. Still calm, still clean. But the injuries won, and at just 31 years old, Colin Harvey retired from professional football. No farewell tour, no testimonial match, no send-off under lights. Just a final walk into the dressing room, a nod to the boots that carried him, and the door quietly closing behind a legend who never needed noise to prove his worth. The greats often fade before the world is ready. Colin Harvey didn't fade. He just stepped back and let the silence speak for him. He left Goodison as a player, but Goodison never left him, not for long. By 1977, barely a year into retirement, Colin Harvey was back, this time in training gear. Not to play, to teach. He joined Everton's youth coaching staff, quietly shaping the next generation with the same values he had once lived by on the pitch: discipline, vision, and humility. It was there he coached the next generation, players such as Peter Reid, Paul Bracewell, Trevor Steven, and Kevin Sheedy. Colin Harvey didn't just coach them, he molded them. He showed them what it meant to think, to listen, to feel the rhythm of a game before trying to dominate it. And under the tutelage of Howard Kendall, he rose. By 1981, he was first-team coach, standing next to the manager he once called teammate. The boots were gone, but the mind, the quiet, piercing, elegant football mind, was sharper than ever. And as Everton began to climb again, this time toward their golden decade, Colin Harvey was at the heart of it. Again, he never asked for credit, he never needed to, because those who knew, knew. He didn't ask for the throne, but when it was offered, he didn't refuse it. In June 1987, after Howard Kendall left to manage Athletic Bilbao, Everton looked inward. Not for charisma, not for fireworks, but for continuity, for loyalty, for someone who understood what had built their golden era from the inside. They turned to Colin Harvey, from coach to manager, from clipboard to command. He took the job not with a roar, but with a nod. A quiet man stepping into a loud room. His first season, he finished 4th in the First Division, respectable, stable. But the shadow of Kendall's title-winning team loomed over everything. The fans still sang, the team still competed, but the magic, that elusive, golden, swaggering magic, seemed to dim, just slightly. Injuries, transitions, and changing tides pulled at the fabric. Still, Harvey held the line. He brought through players, made hard calls, and carried the club with dignity. But dignity isn't always enough in football. By October 1990, with Everton hovering mid-table, the board made their move. He was relieved of his duties, no scandal, no disgrace, just a man who gave everything and got back silence in return. But even then, he didn't walk away. He returned to the backroom staff. Again, because some men don't manage for power, they serve for love. Colin was the heartbeat behind the success, said those who played under him. He said once, "It's very unusual to be honored while you're still alive. It's a fantastic feeling." But it wasn't just that day. He lives in the club's Hall of Fame. He's forever listed among the Everton Giants, those who didn't just wear the shirt, but became the shirt. Even now, as Bramley Moor Dock rises by the Mersey, the club confirmed The Holy Trinity statue will remain at Goodison Park. New artworks planned for Bramley Moor Dock? Because memory does not stay buried. It endures, and so does legacy. From the boy who crossed Stanley Park in 1960 to the man who walked off the pitch in 1974, to the coach, the manager, the mentor, he gave 6 decades to one club. Not chasing glory, but guarding it. He didn't seek the spotlight. He stood behind it so others could shine, and yet they remembered the Hall of Fame. The name Everton Giant, the bronze statue beside Goodison. They remembered he was the pass before the goal, the hand behind the win, the one who stayed when others moved on. Subscribe, not for flash, but for the men whose silence built dynasties. For those who wore greatness lightly and left legacies the game still stands on.